and gentlemen, it's time for Big Wil'S Spotlight. We're going to discuss movies the Oscars don't care about. We're going to discuss movies that you care about. So go ahead, get yourself something to eat. Get yourself something to drink. Sit back and relax with your popcorn and your date as we go to Big Wil'S Spotlight with your hosts, Big Will, Dr. Quack, and the important one, Mr. Mayhem.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Big Will Spotlight. I'm Big Will.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem. Man, 4th of July weekend, we get to talk about something kind of patriotic, Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. Yes, we spent the last couple months talking about these superheroes, which didn't have a problem with. I mean, I rather enjoyed it. But it's kind of time to get back to what started this all and talk about some movies.
Yep, and this has a wrestling tie-in, which is where this all started, what Big Will was talking about. There is a former professional wrestler involved in this movie series.
Yes, man from England, Pat Roach. He was European Britain and European World Heavyweight Champion. So,
yeah, and he does several different parts in here. We'll discuss those as we get into it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't realize he was in pretty much all of them. I mean, I don't know if he was in the fourth one. I didn't find that one out. But
oof. So where were we going to start on this?
Oh, first thing we're going to do, we're going to kind of just kind of get into it and just talk about the movies and rate them. I mean, just go along with it, see how it goes.
And before we get to it, even though he's in a different genre of movies, we got someone here to discuss this with us. Welcome to the show, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hello there.
All right, welcome over.
Yeah, we started with Star Wars, and now we're making our way back out, but we still got a tie-in.
Yeah, we got, because we're not gonna end up talking about Indiana Jones. I'm sure we'll end up talking about the National Treasure and maybe even some of the Professor Langdon movies.
There you go. So instead of superheroes with superpowers, we've just got incredible humans who do all kinds of things.
They do it all in their head.
All righty. So again, where do you want to start with this?
Well, I mean, we can just start with, we'll rate the movies real quick. Then we'll talk about what it was and why it is that it is.
All righty.
So, I mean, you can't just take away from, if it wouldn't have been for the first one, there wouldn't be, before I get too much further, I did not know they were coming out with the fifth Indiana Jones when I mentioned that I was going to cover it today. So they are done with the I don't want to say production, they're done with filming, and it will be coming out sometime next year, but we're going to talk about the four that we know of. And I mean, you got the first one. It was just a great overall movie. It wouldn't be the franchise it is today without that movie.
Yes, Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, they did a great job in this movie. He's right. There's a lot of iconic scenes. Some of them they didn't expect to be iconic, like Indiana Jones shooting the sword swinging guy. He was actually suffering from the flu, and it was supposed to be a long, protracted fight scene, and he just didn't feel it. So he shot the guy, and that becomes one of the most iconic scenes of the entire franchise.
See, there you go.
So as Bob Ross would say, happy accidents.
So like I said, we're just going to skip over a whole bunch of stuff and come back to it and everything like that.
So John, what do you think of Raiders?
So I remember watching the movies when I was very little, and for some reason I decided, you know what, good, like, yes, it's an iconic movie to the point where I would show my own children one day, but I enjoyed Raiders of the Lost Ark just because it obviously was the start of it. To me, it always, like, he's this guy that goes out and goes to get things. and pretty much goes and pretty much somehow always ends up finding trouble. And so it obviously is what it was meant for. And then obviously they kept going, and then it just got weird. So, but Raiders, I enjoyed Raiders.
Yeah.
Yes, Raiders, like I say, I mean, it's got to be basically the best storyline of all of them. I mean, it doesn't just have where he's specifically going after the Ark. It starts off with him finding the one treasure in the first place, you know, how he's the archaeologist that goes in and finds it and then leads into it. And it wasn't a happy accident that he ends up going after the Ark.
Right.
It just everything that led to it.
Yeah.
Whereas the second one, I'm sorry, it was the worst one. If they had started with this one, it probably wouldn't even had two movies. That one was just absolute. I guess at the very beginning, he went and found a treasure, and then everything else was him trying to escape the people who he found the treasure for. But that one was absolute happy accident.
Well, yeah, Temple of Doom, it was really cheesy. And, well, Raiders of the Lost Ark has a little bit of a magical or supernatural theme to it in the Ark of the Covenant and the power that it possesses. This one just goes way off the rails with Kali Ma being able to rip people's hearts out and all the voodoo and all the stuff involved. It was just a one after another contrivance. Trying to call it Indiana Jones, I agree. I don't think it's the worst.
The best
It's not
part
good.
of that movie was Shortstop.
Short Round.
Short Round, I'm sorry.
I agree. It was not great, but it is better than 4.
I was gonna say the fourth fourth was probably to me the worst of them all, because you technically are like they're setting up Shia LaBeouf to take over the whole franchise, and then all of a sudden that went chaotic. So
I won't say the fourth one's the worst one. And the reason why is just because they started with they got more of today's technology into it and were able to do better fight scenes. There were more action, I shouldn't have said fight, more action scenes than pretty much the other ones. They did a good job with the movie. It was just the fact that they picked the wrong person to be the son. We won't throw out names and everything like that. Just
they took it in a different direction. And John, I think you're going to agree. The whole premise of Raiders of the Lost Ark was the United States were battling the Nazi Germany government, who was very interested in the occult. They actually sent hundreds of archaeologists across the world looking for things they thought may or may not exist.
Okay.
In the Crystal Skull, all of a sudden it's now the Russians and the communists. It totally switched the entire premise. Yes, I understand things have to advance and things have to progress, but it kills a central premise to the story. Why would what it would have been in the 50s, it would have been Stalin. Why would have Stalin cared about this? He, according to most history reports, he had no interest in the occult.
Okay.
So, John, what's your thoughts?
I totally 100% agree with what you just honestly just said. And then like as each movie goes, like there was always a premise to it until honestly that fourth one. So when we get to there, I got a whole thing for that one. But I honestly do agree with what you just said. The whole occult thing to between U.S. Nazis, and I actually like, to me that was the original. The original is always the best. You can never get, usually it never gets better after the original, but yeah, I for some reason I 100% agree with what you just said.
Right.
Yeah, somehow we ended up skipping over the third one, which is actually kind of my favorite one.
I agree. While it isn't as thematically as good as the first one. I think the star power in it and the twists and turns make it a little bit better.
Yes, I mean, I'm sorry, Sean Connery in that one was hilarious. The repertoire that those two had together just made for the movie. I mean, besides, he had a really pretty girl in it.
Karen Allen in the first one's a pretty girl too, but I know what you're saying.
Second one, not so much, but you know, it is what it is.
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones.
We're going to spend probably most of this bashing the second one if you haven't figured it out.
So yeah, the third one I actually really liked. They filmed some of that in Jordan. The big scene that they come through the Crescent Canyon and they come on to Petra. That's the name of that in Jordan, Petra. I thought it was a really good play that they used that there to kind of give the reality feel to it. And Petra is really a protected site, so being able to show they cared about it. I liked that. I liked that Indiana Jones, they gave him a good backstory because the TV show that they did, Young Indiana Jones, just was not good. And they fixed it basically in about 2 minutes with River Phoenix. I thought they did a great job there.
Speaking of River Phoenix, I actually think this is the last movie he did.
No, I think he did something after that.
But ending up finding out where Indiana Jones had got the scar on his chin from, I mean, I guess you never really would have noticed he had a scar on his chin, except they pointed it out.
Right, and I like how they build it. I like how they definitely put that together to bring it in, that how he got his scar, because that was something that Harrison Ford had. He actually got that when he started out his acting career on
Don't get me started.
no, I'm drawing a blank on the name here. It's an old movie from the 70s. He worked as a carpenter and then he had like a small part.
It was probably a Western.
Welcome in the storyteller.
Oh, yes, we got
Hello.
Hello there.
How's everyone doing today?
We're doing great, sir. How are you feeling?
Much better. Much
Yes,
better.
you were on a little bit of a vacation. You look rested and tanned and ready to go.
Yeah. Well, I got sick halfway through vacation, but hey, who's counting? It is what it is.
Along with you.
So, American Graffiti was the name of the movie I was thinking of. That's where he got his scar, because Harrison Ford started out as a carpenter on sets and then he filled in for a part.
All right.
So I knew I'd remember it eventually. So, storyteller, since you're coming in with us, we're talking Raiders of the Lost Ark. We've kind of gone over the basics of the movies of what's good, what's bad. Give us your thoughts.
You know, that came out, what, in 81, 82? You know, still coming off the success of Star Wars. And I think Harrison Ford had said he would never thought he'd work with, you know, Spielberg and Lucas again, because Spielberg did have a hand in Star Wars to a degree. But yeah, I love the story, man. Growing up, I wanted to be an archaeologist. It was like, I still to this day am fascinated by archaeology and ancient history. So, you know, it for its time, it just, you know, struck all the right chords, and you know, that manly 80s bravado mixed with the mystery and the history of it. It's a freaking awesome movie, you know. Raiders of the Lost Ark in particular.
Oh, didn't mean to cut you off or anything. Yeah, it was one of them things. It was always like I pointed out, we're going to end up probably bringing in National Treasure and Professor Langdon movies and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. It's like, which one of these prompted you to like want to be a archaeologist? Basically, I know that really National Treasure, he's not an archaeologist, and
Yeah.
Langdon wasn't. He's a symbologist,
which isn't a real title, but they made it up for the movie.
Yeah. So I mean, it was like, what made you want to like go find something, find one of them little things, and go on a little treasure hunt.
Yeah, exactly. You know, every boy has wanted to go hunting for pirate treasure. You know, it's just it it captures that kind of adventurous innocence, and at the same time as the unknown, the mystery, the mysticism of what is it exactly we're dealing with here. We're dealing with heavenly forces. Something's going on here that they ain't telling you about. So it's like conspiracy and manly man story all wrapped up into one.
Yep. And it wasn't me with pirate treasures, but Raiders of the Lost Ark. I really became interested in not so much archaeology for like artifacts and stuff, but more like for the dinosaurs, paleontology and stuff like that for a long time. Yeah. And it's similar animal. It's just a little different as far as looking and trying to follow the tracks to where the old bones are hidden. I got into that because of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and for me, it's kind of similar. For me, it's kind of similar because, it piqued I went through a dinosaur phase. I've always been fascinated with them. I'm currently on a kick about, early human forms like Neanderthals, Denisovans, and all that stuff. And it's just fascinating to think, who was the first guy who actually used his imagination and came to this realization that, hey, I can make up stories. And here I am a million years later, calling myself the storyteller. It's like, it's fascinating to think about how did we go from, Australopithecines or Lucy or the Cro-Magnon man or these earlier, pre-humans to actually something that we call human, Homo, in that genus. It's fascinating.
It kind of goes into the fourth one with the aliens and stuff like that. I mean, no, it's not quite the same, but I mean, like I say, I got to fight for the fourth one a little bit. I still hate the second one the most. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it is fantasy. It is a bit of fantasy, but it got me interested in science, so it can't be all bad.
It definitely got me. And yeah, I agree with you. That was something, biology wasn't my strong suit. I was more chemistry, but yeah, the early hominids and trying to figure out from Australopithecus to where we are now, what are the missing links that are in there? They think they find it, and all of a sudden they discover they're missing another one. So it's always interesting to see how many, when they finally say we've found the chain, even all the way back to mitochondrial Eve, when they finally think they found that.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing that science is always evolving. We're talking about the evolution of the human species, but it's not there are a lot of forks on that family tree, and some of them, they go over here and they kind of fall off, and there's, they just, that part of our history is gone. So there's not a direct line. It's more of, various branches.
That's true.
And it's still going to continue on for eternity, pretty much.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. So
I don't know how we got onto that, but hey.
Sure. So yeah, let's break it down. We'll start backwards since we got into the kick on the side tangent here with early hominids. Let's talk about the crystal skull.
You want to go with the crystal skull and start that way so you can bash on it a little bit, I'm sure. I know I wasn't going to mention his name. The only downfall I found for this actual movie, I mean, it's supposed to be fantasy. It's just supposed to get your imagination going, get your mind going where, hey, why did these people put these bands around their head to make their skulls, stick up further, that kind of stuff. The only thing that was wrong with it was Shia LaBeouf. Hey, don't come kick my ass. I'm sorry.
That's selfish. They could have picked somebody else to be the plucky young sidekick. It's not like he's shortcut.
I'm going to end up speaking of another character too, because they changed. Because hey, it's Harrison Ford still, Jack Ryan. They changed Jack Ryan's character throughout the movie series. Also, they can go through and change his part out too. that way they can continue on with the series. Because I'm sorry, Harrison's getting old. I'm actually
well, it
surprised.
actually didn't start with Harrison Ford. It started with Alec Baldwin. The Hunt for Red October is also a Jack Ryan movie.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said it's evolving, from movie to movie. I just had to mention that he was one of them.
Yeah. Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger.
Yeah, he played more Jack Ryan parts. There we go. James Earl Jones was in all of them.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't, because Morgan Freeman replaced him in Sum of All Fears when it was Ben Affleck as Jack Ryan.
Okay. And if you didn't know, since I did mention his name in I dropped it. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series. James Earl Jones is still Darth Vader.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So,
hey, I got away from the fourth movie pretty good, didn't I?
So I'm going to take us back to it. Of the big thing I discussed of why I really didn't like Crystal Skull, besides Shia LaBeouf, because Shia LaBeouf, is the whole premise. It was always supposed to be the United States against the Nazis, trying to stop, the fascist world, and then they switched it to the communists only because it took them so long to get a new movie out.
Yeah.
And they could have.
And Harrison Ford got a little older, so
right, they could have.
Well, because it's not going to be. Because you had to move on from the Nazis in 1940s to. I'm going to say even the 50s. It was more the 60s, probably.
No, it was the 50s. But the first Raiders of the Lost Ark took place in 1933 or 34.
Okay.
So they could have taken it to 44 or 45, said he got a little older, and still been fine.
Okay.
So it killed the whole premise, and then they took it always had a magical overworld theme. And I think they took it a little bit too far with aliens, and the Crystal Skull gave you the true side and the protection. I think it was a little too ambitious without explaining why the sudden change in the direction they were going with the first three.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So you have anything on that one, Storyteller?
Yeah, I agree. Shia LaBeouf was, the wrong person to play that role, if they even needed that role to begin with. The story was okay. It was interesting. It kind of explored that kind of El Dorado myth and, South American, Aztec, Incan mythology. And that was interesting. But, as a movie, compared to the other ones, even, Temple of Doom, which was, as about as 80s cheesy, corny as you can get. But, just as a, actually, no, that was the second movie. Third, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade are always my favorite, as far as the story goes. And the whole alien thing, it was a bit of a stretch, when you take it in consideration with the other mythologies they were working off of. How do you explain biblical deities and aliens? That's kind of I don't know. Or South Indian magic or whatever. But as a movie, not the best one. I kind of wonder how they're going to pull off this next one they're supposed to be making, because Harrison Ford's 70 now. And, he's still playing Indiana Jones. So how's that working? I don't know.
That's why I was saying they can always bring in somebody to kind of continue on with the franchise, whether it be his son or if they just decide to end up replacing him. This movie that they just, like I pointed out earlier, they've already filmed it. It's just not coming out next year. They're reviving the franchise. It's been in the works for over 10 years.
Yeah.
This is going to be the first one that is not Lucas and Spielberg written and directed, and it's gonna just take on a whole nother genre now. I mean, we're trying to get. I want to generalize people down into like Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, whatever.
Yeah, and so how do you sell this, swashbuckling archaeologist who it should be in a museum, when today the consensus is no, we should just left it alone or something,
Right.
But then that begs the question, how would we learn about it? Blah, blah, blah. And that's a whole, it'll be interesting how they handle, a swashbuckling archaeologist who, arguably destroyed several ancient temples, the opening scene from the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
He destroyed the first temple because
destroyed all of this archaeological history. When if he was an archaeologist, a purist, he would be starting at the top and not after the golden statue. It would be let's study these spear points that are the poisoned spear points, or why is there this collection of spiders collected here? And then we learn that ancient people bred spiders and all this stuff. Why did they have a gold statue on a pedestal that had a big rolling rock? Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. How did they accomplish the big rolling rock without the wheel?
Yeah, and the way they put it with the Jovitos is they shouldn't have been a people that cared about gold in the first place.
Exactly. How did this primitive people still in the Stone Age still have metalworking abilities? I mean.
But I think the most interesting thought process should have been involved in the trap.
Exactly.
That back then, if you move this statue, the pillar's going to move and set off the trap. I almost wonder what would have happened if it would have come up instead of gotten pushed down.
Yeah, exactly.
All those are interesting things that, from a standpoint of you could almost make movies about those subplots, but
almost
most of the purists would be interested in that more than anything else.
We were talking for this.
I'd be interested in it,
Yeah, I agree.
And we've been going over this movie franchise for almost 20 minutes now. We still haven't even gotten off of the opening scene of the original, the Raiders of the Lost Ark here.
Yeah. we get to have a unique perspective on this here. Somebody who's just joined us who may have more of what's going on than we do. Welcome to the show, Indiana Tin Man.
Yeah. I need to go find a plug to plug my phone into because it's about to die.
Handle that business, good sir. So, Indiana Tin Man. So, what's your thoughts on your movie franchise?
He was talking. We can't hear him.
Oh, you got a mute on, or
Tin Man. No.
Couldn't hear some Tin Man words.
I'm waiting for the hat just to pop up on his head.
Uh-oh. Technical difficulties.
Da, 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 Indiana.
I mean, we can give him a chance to get that taken care of.
Yeah, so Tin Man looks like he's gonna pop out. Oh, I heard a Tin Man. I heard him.
How's that work?
We can hear you now.
Yeah, every time Storyteller shows up, I always got technical difficulties. Asshat. Anyway.
Uh-huh.
So what's your thoughts on Indiana?
Well, I heard lots of things that I agree with. I heard a lot of things I didn't disagree with. So, first off, the first one, obviously, the original's always the best. Yes, Harrison Ford, Aaron Allen did a great job. It would be nice if they could do some kind of prologue before that with decent actors and actresses showing their relationship before Raiders of the Lost Ark, because obviously there was a relationship there beforehand. Secondly, Temple of Doom, if we could just erase that from history, that would be amazing.
I mean, then we wouldn't have, a shirtless Harrison Ford with a machete in his hand chopping a bridge in half, So,
Yeah, but then again, yeah, it's true. And then we wouldn't have the little, Asian kid running around. Okie dokie, Ducky Jones. Yeah, like nobody cares short round. But yeah, so The Last Crusade, I really like how they take actual historical events and then actual historical knowledge and they put that in there to where it is. It's just the same thing with what Dan Brown did with a lot of the Robert Langdon novels. And then of all people to play Indiana Jones's father, they've got Sean Connery, which
yeah.
You got a legendary heartthrob and then another legendary heartthrob. There's not that many more legendary heartthrobs that could follow behind with Harrison Ford, but I think Shia LaBeouf did a really good job of it, even though Big Will thinks that was ridiculous. But you're not going to find anybody else better. I mean, if they continue it on with how they've been doing it, you're not going to find another one. Just let Shia LaBeouf keep doing his thing. He will get better. That's just how it is. I mean, because if River Phoenix was still alive, he would be too old to do so. But honestly, at this point, Harrison Ford's like 78 years old, somewhere in there. Do you see him swinging from a bullwhip?
No.
Well, we did have a question come in here, so we'll ask this question, let everybody figure it out. This comes from Neil. Who do you think was the hardest villain of the Indiana Jones series?
Well, I mean, if you're going to ask me, I'm going to end up going and saying Pat Roach. He was in all of them. He fought Indiana Jones in every single one.
Yeah. By the way, for those of you who are figuring out who that is, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the famous scene where the plane is spinning and the guy that's knuckle thumping Harrison Ford all over the place turns around into the blades. That's Pat Roach. He's a former professional wrestler.
In Temple of Doom, he's the guy that's handing his ass to him in the rock crusher and then gets crushed by the rocks. Sucked into the rock crusher. There we go.
But I'll start on this one here. For the true hardest villain, it would be Belloc, who was the researcher, the archaeologist from the first movie, because Indiana Jones never beat him. He beat himself because he got overconfident and opened the Ark of the Covenant. But Belloc always seemed to one-up Indiana Jones. So that's my opinion of the hardest villain.
I mean, if it wouldn't have been for the Ark, taking him out, who knows if... Yeah, I mean, it's just what it is. Like, otherwise, he beat everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, Storyteller, your thoughts?
Best villain. My choice is not necessarily the big bad evil guy at the end, but the creepiest villain is Good evening, Dr. Jones. The German.
The one with that burns his hands.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was just a creepy dude, and he played that. The guy who played that role, man, he sold it.
Yeah, he did.
What is that character's name? Dang it, I don't remember. But
God, you're gonna make me pull out technology.
Yep. So, Tim Man.
Honestly, and this is going to be kind of a funny one, I think the toughest enemy of all of them is one that's been in literally every single film: the snakes.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't stand the snakes. He can't stand the snakes.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, you didn't think about that one, did you, Storyteller? Yeah, the snakes, the reptiles, the things that like to bite you. Yeah, but no, we're talking about Russians and Germans. We didn't think about the reptilians.
There you go. Didn't know Tin Man was a herpetologist.
Oh.
He comes back and says the Nazi commander, which was I think you're talking from the third one, where he captured and shot Sean Connery and made Indiana Jones go and find it for him.
Oh yeah.
The actor's name was Ronald Lacey, who did the part from the creepy German part.
What was the character's name?
He passed away in 1991.
It was the It was the third one as well, wasn't it? Where he goes to intercept the artifact, and it was at one of the big book burnings in Berlin.
Yeah.
And he's dressed as a Nazi officer, and he has the diary, and he runs into Hitler, and then Hitler just signs the diary.
It's a book and
Like-
off he goes. Yeah.
Like you just
Okay,
got
so-
a very historical piece of something in your hand right there.
Yeah.
So then, who really is the biggest villain? Dang, I wouldn't have thought of that.
You know, but it makes me wonder because each time it's always been it was the Germans, then the Aztec, then the Germans, and then the last one it was the Russians. So, I mean, what time frame are we looking at here? Are we moving Indiana Jones to the 60s, the 70s? Is he going to Vietnam? Is he going back to Tunisia to find the Sword of Destiny? I mean,
Yeah, it's hard to say because the Crystal Skull was definitely around the time of the nuclear test. That silly scene where he's riding in a refrigerator.
Yeah.
So that was early 50s. So yeah, who knows where the next one's going to be because it took it again another 10 years. Yeah, does he end up in Cambodia or Vietnam having to deal with the Vietnam War? Because Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, there's a lot of archaeological history there.
Yeah.
You can't just, study one history and not try and study the rest of them too.
That's very true.
You're going to find a crossover from one.
Or do they stick with the pattern and go with the biblical theme? Because they did, Ark of the Covenant, and then Indian Doom Rocks, and then the Holy Grail, and then they did Crystal Skull aliens. So do they go back to the do they follow the same pattern, or do they go some other direction?
That's a good way to think of it.
Well,
Go from-
if they went with they went off the script with the Crystal Skull and the aliens, every major civilization has always had their mysticisms involved with it.
Yeah.
So that's why I said they could do Cambodia, Khmer Rouge. They had the Angkor Wat was the big temple there of their culture. So you never know what they could be thinking.
Yeah. That'll be interesting to see, how.
I mean,
Find this one out.
I mean, biblically, I don't know what else they could really go look for unless they, I don't know if they could really do it
The Sword of Solomon.
with the way, I was thinking like the Spear of Destiny, which that was done in the Librarian series where they look for
Right?
the
Or
spear
Moses-
that Jesus was stabbed with.
Yeah.
maybe Moses' staff, and they could bring in the Middle East world in that.
Yeah.
Possibly. That's a fascinating history with Gilgamesh and the Sumerians. That'd be interesting.
Hell, to find the stone that killed Goliath.
Yeah.
It's probably like that big.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that they would use
Speaking
it
of slingers,
I would hope
Have
they
you
would use
seen-
it to explain a bunch of things that they haven't explained, like maybe explain how everything got started. Maybe explain what actually happened to Indy's dad because we saw him drink from the Grail,
yeah.
but yet there's a picture of him next to the dean of the school, which that basically explains that they passed on and everything like that. But
Yeah.
like, how long did his dad live?
Wasn't drinking from the cup supposed to make you immortal because they had the 400-year-old knight sealed away in there?
Well, they did
Right.
explain that in the movie that you had to keep drinking from it. It gave you eternal life for a period.
I thought that you had to stay in. You had to stay
Yeah,
in.
you had to also
Yeah.
stay within that area because the cup only worked inside that area.
Okay.
Doesn't make any sense on how they got it there in the first place.
Yeah, that's right.
That makes sense now.
But, and then Neil mentioned the Ten Commandments, but that's already covered in the first one. That's in the Ark of the Covenant.
That's the Ark of the Covenant.
But yeah, there's a lot of things. Even if they want to go into some of the newer stuff, they did the
Well, because I mean,
they did it in the Dexter series, the Revenator sword that supposedly beheaded John the Baptist.
I mean, there's
Oh yeah, there's tons of historical artifacts. Gosh, look at medieval history. Every other church and cathedral had some sort of holy relic.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's hundreds of them. So whatever the MacGuffin is that India's after,
There's so many
if
other
they're going to go,
stuff. Go ahead.
whatever MacGuffin it ends up being, there's plenty of them in the Bible to choose from.
Exactly.
Plenty of them.
well, because I mean, there's a lot of things that end up getting covered by other. I mean, you can talk about Laura Croft now too. I mean, they end up finding like the Garden of Eden. I mean, something prompted, all the Greek gods. Something, there's
Well, and the
there's so many
Titans
things
prior
that
to
go out.
that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so, I mean, they can cover so much. I mean, there's so much natural history out there that they
You
can.
know what it's going to be about. But that's the whole fun, speculating until it comes out. What else can you do?
It makes me wonder what else is in that warehouse of artifacts, because in the
Yeah.
last one, during the chase scene out, they knock over the box that had the Ark of the Covenant in it, and it's like, of all things that these Russians are looking for, they could have been looking for. They could have got that while they were there. No, they wanted this skull. They wanted this, but what else is exactly in that warehouse? Like that could possibly be in there.
I think there's actually a novel series that kind of deals with that, or maybe it was a web series or something, or maybe it was just a
a TV
fanfic.
series like Warehouse 18,
But yeah.
54 or something. Never quite got into it, but it did cover stuff like that. It was like if the artifact got out, they had to go investigate.
Yeah. Wasn't there a TV series, Young Indiana Jones?
There was
Came
Young
out in like the
Indiana
middle or late 90s. For like
Yeah,
1 or 2 seasons.
unfortunately, it wasn't very good.
Don't mess with that.
So
Thank God I was in the Army deployed somewhere.
probably.
Well, that was kind of around the time where they had Xena and Hercules, and every other channel had their mythological, babe magnet, whatever.
Right. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
All right. So I guess anything else we need to go over on these, or
Well, I mean, hey, I did actually, after, the Temple of Doom, I got to go see the alligators at the gator farm. I got to see the ones that were in the movie.
Oh, nice.
I got bit by an ostrich.
all righty. So,
Useless knowledge.
So I guess we'll start with Tin Man here. So what was your the four that have been already put out? Indiana Jones. What was your favorite and least favorite?
Well, I mean, definitely Temple of Doom was definitely my least favorite. But I would have to say The Last Crusade is probably right up there with it, because I think the relationship or the work relationship between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery was perfect. River Phoenix playing a young Henry Jones, and learning to deal with the bullwhip at first and the line, and then you just kind of showing like how he got started and then where he's going next with it. I believe that was probably my favorite one out of all of us, probably The Last Crusade.
Yeah, I would agree. So, Storyteller?
I mean, not to parrot Tin Man, but you hit it on the head. It was Harrison Ford, Sean Connery. I mean, come on. Who else was going to play Indiana Jones's dad? Casting was perfect. The writing was good. The story was believable, or, you could suspend belief enough to think that, okay, maybe there's a holy grail out there someplace, and we have to solve this puzzle to get to it. And it was, good father son reuniting buddy thing going on. It was just it's a good movie. You know, least favorite for me, it's a toss up between Crystal Skull and Temple of Doom. I'm gonna have to say Crystal Skull simply for the fact that just that was when Shia LaBeouf was in his weird stage. He's kind of tamed as an actor in his later years. I think what was it? That movie Paycheck was really good, but yeah, that wasn't his best performance, and I don't need to see Shia LaBeouf, fencing with a rapier off the back of a '38 Pontiac in the desert of the Amazon or
So
the
he
jungles
can't,
of the
he
Amazon.
can't sword fight with a Russian commander, but he can dig a hole in the desert for days.
Yeah. Hey, holes, man.
Yeah.
Everybody's a critic.
Like I was saying, I mean, Shia LaBeouf, I'm not going to take away from some of the stuff he's done. He's got some great movies out there. I mean, Transformers pretty much wouldn't be where it's at without,
Yeah.
But
Him as Indiana Jones's son. Nah, I don't
Eagle
know.
Eye was a good movie too, but I just can't get over seeing him not be the brother in Even Stevens. Yeah. Besides, it was his weird face. So just took a disliking to him. Like Joaquin Phoenix is working through his,
Joaquin Phoenix pretty weird too.
but he's working.
Well,
through
I mean, to think about it, if they was to do another one and have someone be Indy's son, I mean, who else could play it?
Depends on how old you want him to be.
Yeah.
I mean, they would need to at least be in their late 30s, maybe early 40s.
Chris Pine.
Oh.
Oh, you don't like him?
No, I do, but I just don't see. I don't see anybody having the Harrison Ford gruff. The whole we're gonna have to go on another quest. And that famous Harrison Ford, like I'm just gonna jump and throw my arms out and knock everybody down that he always does.
I have one for you, and he's not too old. John Cena.
Why? You ruined my whole Sunday.
Don't make me put you over my knee, son.
No. John's okay. This is going to be slightly diverted, but I'm going to say this. John Cena is a great wrestler and a great entertainer, and he's a pretty decent actor. I loved Peacemaker. He sucked as a Marine. He sucked as a firefighter. He sucked as a coach, and he sucked driving fast cars.
He was pretty good at cop blocking.
Or drinking beer through his ass. Whatever, fine.
I thought it was pretty funny in the firehouse thing.
But I think Chris Pine would probably work. Tom Hardy would be too hardcore. And what was the guy's name that was in the new Blade Runner?
Gosling. Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. Maybe him. Maybe.
I mean, there's some people out there, like I say, I mean, if they're going to continue on with the franchise, they're going to have to do it sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
Not trying to wish, bad things on anybody kind of thing, but I mean, he's got to mentor somebody before you can just move on.
True.
So maybe a grandson.
Yeah. There you
Make
go.
him a little bit younger. I want to be like Grandpa.
There you go.
Grandpa
I'm going to say, I also agree that the Holy Grail is the best one. And I also don't like Temple of Doom or Crystal Skull. I'm going to say Crystal Skull is worse for one reason, and it has nothing to do with how the movies are. At least the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom came out with a great video game.
Wait, there was a video game?
There was an arcade game for Temple of Doom, and it was actually good.
Don't remember that one.
I don't
I
remember that
don't
one either.
remember that one.
But if the production company out there and everything like that is going to take a clue from any of this, hey, follow actual historical stuff. Don't go mystical.
I would agree with that statement.
No, you're right. No,
All right.
no, you're
So
right.
I'm not going to parrot them. I'm not going to, yes, the third one by far pretty much was the best one.
Mhm.
It wouldn't have been a series without the first one, but at the same time, yeah, it's kind of a toss up between the second and fourth one. But I absolutely, I don't know if it was just the wrong time, too stinky at the age I was at. I don't know. I didn't like Temple of Doom at all.
All righty. All right. So I guess it's about time to wrap it up, it sounds like.
It's getting close to it.
All righty.
Well,
So,
You have a plan for what's coming next?
not absolutely. Just quick side notes. Hey, I ended up, we've had some time off, vacations, holidays, sickness. I ended up watching the new Doctor Strange. Follow-up note for the Marvel stuff. I actually did watch Morbius too, which kind of throwing me off. Either way, the only way that Scarlet Witch would have lost that competition was if she beat herself.
And with that being said, I'm going to see if I can talk him into doing the rundown next time. Maybe I can talk Big Will into we do the rundown, talk about The Rock, the wrestler in an action movie.
Okay, we can do that. We can. We'll just. How about this? We'll just say a lot, so that way we don't just cover one movie. We've got a couple that we'll talk about. And no, I'm not going to do like Fast and Furious. Not like that whole thing, but we'll go with like The Tower, San Andreas,
Tooth Fairy,
Tooth Fairy,
Game
yes.
Plan.
Yeah, you should do a thing on all these big action stars doing these little kid films, like Vin Diesel in The Pacifier. That was horrible.
But I would love if Karen came on to help me with Tooth Fairy.
She's still in jail, though. I don't
Oh,
know. if
she
we'll
in
be
jail?
able to get
She's
her.
in prison.
Oh, teach me not to follow.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
she kind of screwed up pretty bad. She tried to escape.
she got tasered and everything, man. You should have watched it.
I'll have to go back and watch that
I'll
one.
refer you back to that. But so watching next time, we'll have it out here. Hopefully next Sunday, if plans permit, we'll be talking about The Rock.
The
So
Rock,
to
yes.
Indiana Tin Man, the storyteller. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming on. And Obi-Wan, thank you. Even though you're gone right now, maybe you'll catch up on it.
You had to pack for vacation.
No, never mind. You won't watch it.
All right, we'll see
See
you
you guys
next
later.
time.
Thank you.